Are you looking to take your personal finances to the next level? Well, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Monday Money Tip Podcast, presented by I Was Broke, Now I'm Not, with your host, Joseph Sangle.
Well, welcome to Monday Money Tip Podcast, presented by I Was Broke, Now I'm Not. I am fired up to be your host again today. My name is Joseph Sangle, and I'm with Megan Hibbard, my co-host. Are you fired up today?
Fired up. It's going to be a good episode.
Yes, this is part of our coronavirus COVID-19 rapid response, right now relevant information podcast episodes.
Yep.
So we had a couple of podcasts already on the docket to release. One of them was for today, and we've kind of just said, that goes on the shelf. It doesn't really talk about the right now relevant information.
Right.
We wanted to make sure that we're able to address it. As we've said, COVID-19 has brought a shock to the world. Millions have been suddenly and unexpectedly thrown into unemployment. Can you believe it?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Like just 6-7 weeks ago, no one would have believed this. Employers went from record sales in January and February to laying off people in March, and the stock market has imploded.
All right, so many people who are operating their lives without any financial reserves are now facing the challenge of trying to hold their life together without income. So as last week's episode, we were, like Joe said, we're kind of making a halt. So today we're going to talk about what do you do when there's just not enough money. So basically, help, I can't pay my bills. You have these bills coming in, you don't have enough money to pay for them. What do you do? How do you prioritize what you have?
Yeah.
How do you know who to pay first? How do you know who can you can kind of push off a little bit? So we're really going to dive into that.
So a lot of people are in silent desperation saying, I don't have enough money to pay all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And last week we talked about having, 10 financial steps people could take right now. But what do you do when you take all 10 steps and you still don't have enough to cover your essential items? And so it's so important that we address this. And so, hey, listen, you're listening to the podcast and maybe you have not gotten to that spot. Maybe you do have margin. Maybe you've been listening to this podcast and hearing that you should have margin and all that stuff. But you know somebody in your life who has really fallen on hard times. Get this episode to them. I think they'll find it very helpful.
Yes. So our featured resource for this month is going to be our Grad Special. So it's been a tough few weeks. I know a lot of schools are not having graduation anymore. They've, canceled the commencement ceremonies. But in a lot of them, it's like, are you even going to be able to graduate? I know like nursing students, they can't even do their clinicals. So then what do you do? I know it's like a tough time for people, but if you know a high school or a college age student, we have a great resource for them. So for the month of April, we're offering our Grad Special. So you can purchase a copy of What Everyone Should Know About Money Before They Enter the Real World for just $10 with free shipping to the U.S. So now is a great time for high school and college students to learn how to manage their finances. Why not a better time than now?
Absolutely.
They really need to know this stuff before they enter the real world. So you can just visit iwbnin.com/grad to pick up your copy today for somebody that you might know.
There you go. It's the gift that they would look at and say, what in the world is this, a book? But you know what? If you can help them prevent money mistakes, hey, have you made some money mistakes you wish you could have prevented, that you wish you had known as you left high school, as you left college? This book is appropriate for high school grads and college grads. It helps them prevent making money mistakes. And so let's talk about some current money events. A current money event section. I'm going to bring it back, but it's going to be brief. So we can get to the right now relevant information.
Yes.
So here's the current money events. The market has went down, way down. How do I know when I should start investing? That's a question people are asking.
Yes.
Well, I would tell you that I can't tell you when to time it. That's what I can tell you. I don't know. Neither do you. Neither does some brash person in your life who's saying, oh, today is the day. If they get it right, it's purely because they're lucky. They've compared extraordinarily intelligent people who have more degrees than a thermometer versus guppies blowing bubbles in an aquarium on timing the market. And you know what? The guppy wins about half the time. And so it's not saying that knowledge doesn't help. It's just saying timing, that is a different thing than just applying knowledge over time. So I encourage you, I have been investing. I've been buying all the way down. I've been buying some here at some level of bottom. I don't know if it's the right time to buy or not. Here's what I know. It's way cheaper than it used to be. And so I started in early March. I've been investing all the way through the downturn. Right now, it shows that I've made some losses. Check with me in a year. And I encourage you to do the same. So if you're purchasing part of this market stuff through your retirement account and you're able to keep that up, that's great. That's awesome. But But I encourage you, you should be investing, continue to invest through the dips, because this is the beauty of dollar cost averaging. It takes the timing part out of it, and it's proven over time that those who put in money a little bit all the time win over people who try to time it almost all the time. And so that's it for my current money event section.
Awesome. Okay, so now we're going to dive right in. So we're going to talk about, what do you do when you can't pay your bills? So help, I can't pay my bills. There's not enough money. I don't know who to prioritize. Who do I pay? Everyone's screaming that they want their money. How do I listen to that? How do I weed through that?
Hey,
what do we recommend?
I can tell you right now, I can tell immediately who has no margin and who is immediately in the ditch when they lose their income. And just to be clear, 40% to 50%, it varies a little bit. The Federal Reserve says it's 40% of Americans, when faced with a bill of $400 or more, could not pay cash for it. So think about that in the context of what just happened with the market with this coronavirus pandemic. Literally millions, tens of millions have been thrown into unemployment, loss of jobs, and hopefully it's short term. Yeah. But here's what I know. If they couldn't afford a $400 bill with their income,
yeah, what are they going to do now?
What are they going to do with no income or unemployment income? And they're passing some bills as we speak. You know, when this comes out, it'll be more clear. We're recording this for April 6th, and we want to make sure that we get this information out to you. But listen, like, there are people who cannot pay their bills. If it's not you, it's someone else, share this with them. But this is something helpful to anybody who has faced this type of extraordinary challenge. And people who are without margin are more emotional. They're angry. They tend to lash out at people. And as we say, hurting people hurt other people. And so none of this stuff is an attack on somebody who has lost their income. No one could have seen this coming. No one in January or early February would have predicted this. At the end of the day, this is truly one of those things that we've been saying, you should have had margin. We've preached that for years. But if you didn't, you know, even this, no one could see coming.
Right.
And so let's help you if you can't pay your bills. The first thing that we encourage you to do, number one, is write it down. Write it all down. Why is it important to write it down, Megan?
Yeah, I feel like not feel like this is the truth. When you write it down, it separates truth from fiction. So
that's right.
You're able to know exactly what you have. You're able to expose reality and be able to see it right in front of you.
Yeah, I found this. When people don't have enough, they just tend to throw their hands up in the air and they're like, just chunk it. I can't do this. This is horrible. And if they do have a credit card, still has credit limit, they just start swiping that. And they start making decisions that are based on emotion. And we know that money and emotional decisions, generally not a good combination. And so when you put it on paper, you do expose reality. You also identify the gap, the real gap. You know, hopefully you have unemployment coming your way. Hopefully you had some stuff that you could sell, whatever it might be. But when you write it down, it helps you understand truly what your gap is right now for this month. And then next month, we can take it next. But for this month, the gap. And what I found is, for most people, the gap isn't nearly as big as they've made it out in their heads.
Yeah.
You'll find out the gap is $731. You'll know it to the penny. Instead of, it's just way too much. I can't pay all my bills.
Right.
So the first step always is to write it down. What is that called? That's called planning. And we always revert to the plan, because when you write things down, it brings clarity. It eliminates. It can start reducing emotion. And when I've done this with people who bring in the trash bag full of unopened bills, the tissue, because they're crying, sobbing all the time, what they leave with is saying, $731. And they start immediately thinking about how they can go get $731, whether by cutting out expenses or by earning extra income, selling something. And it helps them it gives them handles really to hold on to, so they can get steadied.
Yeah. All right. Number 2 is ask questions.
Got to ask some questions. And we got some good questions for you to ask. We're going to include them in the show notes. These are good questions. So now this is for all cases of help I can't pay my bills. This is going to be pretty fast for you probably to answer. The first one is, what was the cause of the situation? And what I'm trying to assess here is this happening as a result of living for years with poor financial behavior, or did a big sudden shock happen? Well, we know most people listen to this episode right as we release it. It's because a big sudden shock happened. And maybe, however, it is as a result of a lot of years of poor financial behavior. What does that mean? Not saving money.
Yeah, combination.
Having debt, continually having debt and not getting focused on it, paying it off. So you still have debt payments. And so it's important to identify what was the cause of the situation. And then ask the next question.
Is this an income or an outgo issue or both?
Yes. So is this challenge of not being able to pay your bills because you've lost income? Or is it because you have too much outgo, or is it a combination of both?
Yep.
Write down which it is, or is it both? The third question is, what are your required debt payments? In other words, what are your minimum payments that you have to make? Not as what is the payment you've been making, but what is it that you actually have to pay to remain current? And so that's an important number because a lot of us have been paying extra on debt, and it's time to scale back, go back to minimum payments.
Yep. All right. The next question. Is there something that can be sold?
That's right. Do you have stuff that you can sell? That junk sitting in the garage, that stuff in that storage unit that you should have got, need to get rid of the storage unit anyhow.
Yeah, definitely.
And just sell the stuff that is in it. Is there stuff that you can sell to help bridge the gap? I once had a buddy who was facing these challenges, and he had a Harley. It had been sitting up front of his garage. He hadn't been riding it much over the last 2 or 3 years. Just eroding away, and things that sit, especially motor vehicles that sit, they tend to degrade. And he realized that this gap that he was going to face for about 10 months, man, he could sell this Harley and he could plug that whole gap for all 10 months. And so he made the decision. And a lot of people say, I wouldn't sell my Harley. Well, you know what? He made the decision that he could go get another Harley later. But for now, the right decision was to make that thing leave, plug the gap so that his family could prosper. I don't think he regrets that decision.
Right.
I'm sure he's sad about the Harley. He doesn't regret the decision.
Yeah. All right. The next one. What expenses can be stopped?
Yeah. Can you cut out cable? Can you cut out your cable bill, your Netflix bill, the subscriptions of Hulu, of all these different things that are in your life? What are the expenses that can be stopped? Do you have a gym membership? Do you have insurance bills that you can reduce? What are the expenses you can stop? Can you stop contributions to retirement accounts, to college savings accounts, to health savings accounts? What can you reduce? And of course, listen to last week's episode number 91 on 10 financial steps you can take right now, and it will help you find ways that you can stop expenses.
All right. The last question is, how can income be increased?
That's right. And so can you go get a job? I'm not talking about your passion, your calling. I'm talking about a job that makes us money, money.
Yeah. This drives me crazy when people are like, oh, I can't find a job. And I'm like, well, there's lots of companies hiring right now, but maybe you just don't want to do it. Who cares? It's just horrible. It's just for now. So
I recently saw a guy who he's been looking for a job for 4 years. For 4 years. 4 years. And I was like, for real, 4 years you couldn't find a job? Really, you don't want a job.
Yeah.
Let's be clear. Listen, it's amazing how suddenly when you don't have enough income, you can get motivated to go work a job for a while. Again, I think we should just keep saying in these episodes, this is not forever. It's for now.
Yeah.
And I don't know how long now is, but it's not forever. It's for now,
Yeah.
especially if you make these decisions. So ask good questions. What was the cause of this situation? Is it an income or an outgo issue or both? What are your required debt payments? Is there something that can be sold? What expenses can be stopped? And how can income be increased? And those 6 questions, I urge you should pause and rewind this and stop after each question. Scribble them down. Better yet, go get the ebook. We have an ebook for $2.99 called Help I Can't Pay My Bills on our website. And there's areas for you to answer these questions on there because you need to answer these questions. Not just in your head. Write them down. Remember, the first thing we said, what was the first step of this?
Write it down.
Write it down. Part of the plan, the budget, is to write down the answers to these questions. It's part of your plan.
Yep.
And then, of course, once you write all these down, we go to our third step. After writing it down and asking good questions, number 3?
Prioritize.
That's right. So who gets paid when there's not enough? So we put them in an order of 7 categories. And these 7 categories, I'm going to rattle them off, and then I'm going to say how do you use it. So it's housing, then it's food and prescription medication, then it's transportation, then it's back taxes, then it's secured debts. In other words, debts where they can come take something if you don't pay it back, like a car. Then it's family and friends debts. You owe mom and dad, brother, sister, and then it's unsecured debts. That is like credit cards where they can't come take something, but they'll yell really loud. Okay? Now, what do I mean by prioritize? Really, if you don't have enough money, you've done everything, and even you can't plug the gap. You still have a gap. Well, you start paying stuff in this order, through this priority order. And when the money runs out, you're done. So let's say that you get done with housing. You're able to cover your housing. You're able to cover food and prescription medication. Now, look, we're talking about groceries. We're not talking about going out to eat.
Right.
If you're struggling, you should not be going out to eat. Prescription medication, you got to have that. But can you get the generics? Can you get the $2, the $3, $4? Can you apply for hardship deferrals? And then number 3, transportation. Let's say you get done with that and you were able to take care of housing, food, prescription medication, transportation, and you've routed money. Well, what do you do about your credit card bill? You don't pay it.
Yeah.
Now you call them and tell them, hey, I need your help. I need to forego a payment. You communicate with them. And I have a lot of people freak out and say, but I've got to pay my credit card. And many people have paid their credit cards and they're 2 months late on their house and car. But they're current on their credit card. Why? Because the credit card calls them and hassles them. Why? Because they are number 7. They are unsecured. They know that they have to do that. The reason the house doesn't call and haggle you is because they just come take your house. And so that's why we say prioritize it. And, you got to go through this in order. And, of course, what we encourage you to do is to communicate with those that you cannot pay. Say, I aim to repay. I will repay. I need mercy right now. Be kind. Do not be angry. This is an issue that you've created. Now, listen, there are circumstances in this that we didn't create the coronavirus.
Right.
You didn't expect this to happen, but you did not have margin, saved money. So don't be angry at your creditor. Just be kind. They are humans too. And it's amazing what kindness does. So call them, communicate on a regular basis. If they start calling you, answer the phone, communicate. And what you will find is, as you prioritize this, there will be a day where you do get margin and you will be able to go back and you'll be able to catch up on these. And what you got to do, though, is take care of you. Take care of food. As I say, if I can't eat, ain't nobody getting paid. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to be hangry.
Because nobody's happy.
Yeah, that's right. Prescription medication, obviously, you got to have that. And so we prioritize. Again, I'll rattle them off again. Maybe you could do that.
Yep.
So you can hear a different voice say it.
Sure. All right. Number 1, housing. 2, food and prescription medication. 3, transportation. 4, back taxes. 5, secured debts. 6, family and friends debt. 7, unsecured debts.
That's right. And after you've prioritized, then you got to do number 4, and that's what?
Take action.
That's right. You got to take action. Prepare a list of all the actions you need to take. Now, listen, if you just prioritize and you found out you can't pay some family and friends and you can't pay the credit card, you need to write down the actions that you need to communicate with them. You need to go tell your brother or sister that you owe, or your parents that you owe money, that you have a plan. I will tell you this. If somebody cannot repay me, I'm not happy. Neither will your family or friends.
Right.
But let me tell you, it does bring some consolation when I find the person is really fervently and judiciously working out a plan to repay.
Yeah.
That brings some confidence that the money is not going to be turned into a donation, an unwilling donation. And so communicate with them. The same is true for a credit card company. Even though you view them maybe as the big evil, I mean, people are very angry at their credit cards. I don't understand it. They're totally angry at the credit card company, but they willingly swiped it. Really unusual. Make sure you communicate with them. And then establish accountability with somebody. You need some encouragement along the way. And some of that accountability can be at a distance by listening to things like the Monday Money Tip podcast. But I really do encourage you to have a human who can help you and encourage you, but also hold you accountable to making these decisions that you said you would make, communicating in the way that you said you would. And then the third thing we encourage you to do is to seek help. Part of taking action is to seek help. If you need help preparing a budget, we have a network of coaches around the world, really, that we've trained, over 4,000 of them. And we can put you in contact with a church where we train coaches, And we really want to be able to get you some free help. They'll meet with you for free, help you prepare a budget. We really want to be able to provide that help for you so that you can take action and be able to navigate a situation where you're saying, help, I can't pay my bills, but actually come out the other side, maybe not as harmed like you would be if you just threw your hands up in the air and just lived for the minute. And so we hope this is helpful. Write it down, ask good questions, prioritize who gets paid, and then take action with the decisions you've made. And trust me, it will help you navigate this horrible time so that you can come out the other side, not in the hole that you would have otherwise.
Okay, we have a verse for today. It's Hebrews 4:15-16, and it says, "For we do not have a high priest who is unable to empathize with our weakness, but we have one who has been tempted in every way, just as we are, yet he did not sin. Let us then approach God's throne of grace with confidence, so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help us in our time of need."
I love it so much.
Yeah.
I love that verse 16. Let us then approach God's throne of grace with confidence so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help us in our time of need.
That's good.
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah.
And, I remember, my grandfather was a preacher, and I remember a little bit of him preaching as a kid. But, when you haven't heard your grandparents, and back then they didn't record a lot of stuff, it's kind of hard. And my mother happened across a early tape of one of his messages. Guess what the message was about?
Here's for...
He was preaching about money.
Oh, wow.
Hilarious. Here I am. I teach about money. That's what I do. And the one message I got from my grandfather was him preaching about money.
That's cool.
And it's hilarious. He's sitting there. He had a lisp and a speech impediment. And it was something he would pronounce hallelujah, hallelujah. He couldn't get the second set of L's right. He would do it with a W. But he said, I got myself in a horrible financial mess. He was a wheeler dealer entrepreneur. I mean, he was in everything. And he said, I got myself in a horrible mess. He says, I was praying to the Lord, get me out of my mess. He's like, please, Jesus, help me out of my stupid mess, Jesus. Help me out of my mess, Jesus. Help me out of my mess, Jesus. And he said, and the Lord heard my prayer, and he helped me out of my mess. And then he said, you know what? 5 years later, I forgot. And I went right back into the mess. And I heard that, and I broke into this broad smile of, that is human nature. We beg God to help us out of our mess. And then we go right back into it when he does help us out of our mess.
Welcome to the Old
Testament.
Testament.
So I just say, welcome to the Old Testament.
Yeah.
Welcome to the human race. But we can approach God's throne with grace, with confidence. And we can receive mercy, and don't we all need it, including in our finances, and find grace to help us in our time of need. That is a promise. And so we want to share practical help, but also these great promises from God that are available for all who would accept it. And so we really encourage you with this Monday Money Tips, really to apply it. If it doesn't apply to you and you know somebody who it does, please put this in their hands. We're going to continue to provide helpful content throughout this coronavirus pandemic. However, if we look and deem that, hey, we're starting to come out of this, we may next week talk about one of our episodes, which we've recorded already. We're going to release it on April Fool's Day, but since we had to delay, it's going to be about what?
Well, I don't even know if we should tell them because we might not do it, but
we're going to do it.
So about foolish things people do with their money and how you can avoid being that person. So have you ever looked back on a money decision you made and said, well, that wasn't very smart? Well, next Monday, we're going to be doing our best to equip you to avoid making foolish money decisions.
So it's supposed to be on April Fool's Day. We're going to do the foolish things people do with money. But you know what? It's still relevant to your life, even on April 13th. So we hope you have a great week. We hope that it's a V-shaped recovery week. We hope that you're healthy and that you're staying healthy. And more than anything, we want to always provide right now relevant information to you. And if you can please help us by getting this podcast to other people. If you're watching on YouTube, click that subscribe button and the little bell so you get notified when a new episode is released. And if you could rate us on any podcast platform, and if you could like the I Was Broke Now I'm Not Facebook page, you'll see all of the information that we're sharing in between the Mondays to really help you And so if you've implemented one of our tips, please share your success story with us by emailing us at info@iwbnin.com. And as we go out, Megan, will you share a last thought with everybody?
Yeah, I think one thing to remember is this won't last forever. And how do you want to look back and remember how you made it through it? So do you want to remember you made it through it by panic and worry and, all this stuff? Worry you can't add anything by worrying. So stay informed, but don't dwell in it. Try to find ways that you can get out of your house, whether you go for a walk or a run or do something to kind of break, I'm sitting in my house.
Monotony.
Yeah. So find ways to do that. I feel like is going to be crucial to us staying sane and self-quarantine.
So stay safe, stay sane.
Yeah.
And we'll see you next Monday. Get fired up.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Monday Money Tip Podcast, presented by I Was Broke, Now I'm Not. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a review and subscribe. And for more great content and to stay up to date, visit iwbnin.com. We'll catch you next time.